Street Fighters, ready yourselves for some of the toughest 11 corners on the calendar and set yourself up for some epic door-to-door combat. Welcome to Season 1, Round 3 of the Marathon GT World Tour, and welcome to the awesome Long Beach Street Circuit. My name is Taylor Mills, and alongside me in the booth, Olivia Hayward. I'm pushing those buttons for us tonight, Amity Pulsatrix, and we will be live from lights to flag here on ABN. Laid out in front of our field is 3.1 kilometers of temporary racetrack set up annually for the likes of Formula Drift, IMSA, and IndyCar. Tonight, our field of thundering V8 supercars tackle one of the trickiest circuits in motorsport. Each turn presents a unique opportunity to make a mistake as our grid threads their way between those looming white barriers. Be ready for thrills and spills in automobiles as our drivers try to handle 600 horsepower of Aussie V8 on very slippery concrete. Making our way back across the booth into that colour commentary seat tonight is my wonderful co-commentator. Coming off the back of a win at Alton Park in the Formula Ford, two-time Champ Car race winner, Olivia Hayward. Liv, I already asked our producer on Wednesday the keys to success at Long Beach, but I'm going to grab your viewpoint on the same question, if that's okay.
Absolutely. First of all, that was a week 13 race. Do not use that as credit.
I won Max Bantz today. A win is a win.
Max Bantz is so much more serious. Congratulations on that, by the way. I would say, especially in cars like these, your real stress point is going to be on the braking more than anything else. These supercars often very tricky on the throttle. I think as much as the bumps are going to be a concern here, that is going to be the least of your worries. You are going to be on that big long braking point at the end of East Shoreline Drive into turn 1, and especially that downhill braking zone that feeds you into turn number 6, or turn number 8, I should say, my apologies. That is going to be maybe the trickiest portion of the lap. I've seen so many drivers already in practice spin the rear tires out and just go sideways, passenger side first, into that tire barrier. That's going to be a big pinch point. There's going to be, I think, a lot of incidents between cars as well there. And more than anything else, keeping hold of the rear tires and the braking is going to be the most important factor for success there.
Well, speaking of potential incidents between drivers, we certainly saw a lot of that at Watkins Glen a couple of weeks ago. That wet weather really throwing a bit of a cat amongst the pigeons. Liv, you'll know more about that than me, but I think a few of these drivers out here on track tonight are going to be looking to knock the doors off each other's cars. Almost literally, there's not much space to do anything else.
Potentially, but bear in mind there has been a 2-week cooldown period from that last race. Of course, we flew off back to Europe for an endurance race broadcast last Saturday. But more than that, there has also been a couple of warnings from race control here, and basically trying to put on notice that that sort of driving you cannot get away with here. You'll end up causing a massive crash rather than the, sketchy moments we had at a big wide track like Watkins Glen, and I imagine the drivers are up to the challenge of keeping it a little bit cleaner and really taking the spirit of racing the track more than you're racing the other cars. A track as difficult as this.
And just to add a little bit of difficulty into the mix, there is something we have been keeping a little bit of an eye on as the session has progressed, as we get a gorgeous onboard shot coming through this final sector here at Long Beach. And it does look like there may be a little bit of inclement weather coming our way. It's not going to be until later on in the racing tonight, but it's something that we can see, it's something the drivers can see. And I think for a change, I'm going to be having that weather radar popped out so I can monitor it as it goes on. There's your current weather conditions. They have just disappeared. 27 Celsius on track, 21 Celsius in the air, 78% humidity, and a little bit of wind to contend with. Liv, you know me, I'm not very good at reading weather vanes, so I might just pass that one over to you so you can tell everyone exactly where the wind is coming from.
It's going to be a tailwind or a bit of a crosswind on the braking zone into turn 1. The confusion we have had recently with reading wind directions, that a wind direction of west is saying that the wind is coming from the west, not that it is blowing westward. So you can see that's the orientation of the track map. The East Shoreline Drive being the road that you would normally drive eastwards. We are, of course, heading westbound here on the start-finish straight there. And you can see the wind is going to be coming in from that fountain section and blowing back across towards the hairpin. It might shift a little bit more southwards as the race goes on. And again, there's a slight chance of rain for the final race of the weekend. But as we saw in race 3 of Watkins Glen, these slick tyres can perform in mixed conditions with some very good pace. And so I wouldn't imagine the track would get to a point where we would need to bring out those wet weather tyres. You can say there's always the mystery of the weather forecast and that. So much about the new Tempest system we have in iRacing.
So as the clock ticks its way down to 0 for practice, it is Constantinou from Valentin, from Howe, from Nekamata, from Miller in your top 5, all covered by about a second and a little bit, which does set us up for a fantastic qualifying session as our now huge field of V8 supercars prepares to take the fuel out of the car, bolt on some fresh tires, and see exactly what sort of lap times they can extract out of these Australian beasts. We're going to see some awesome battles between Ford and Chevrolet yet again as the Mustang and the Camaro roar their way around the streets of Long Beach. Only 5 seconds or so left in the session before we go into a closed qualifying session. Our drivers will have 10 minutes and up to 10 laps. They won't squeeze 10 laps in to set their fastest times, which will set our grid for race 1. Before we do get into qualifying though, Liv, any predictions as to who's going to take pole today?
I think we have to go to the hot hand. I think Bia has been so quick all season long. Of course, had some competition there from Emily 2 weeks ago, I should say, and Emily had a much better run in the reverse grid races, especially on the standing starts. But I think for race number 1 and having the qualifying positions set the grid, I am going to back Bia to take her second pole position of the season here. I know, Lord, it is an open session. This was not the plan.
I was about to say, yeah, I think we've lied to everyone, or we've been lied to a little bit. As all, how many cars have we got in this field tonight? I'm
19 sure. Now.
Well, there you go.
Brew has been having some connection issues. I think a storm rolled through, but has hopped into the lobby just in time, and as has the 51. It looks like joining midway through qualifying. That would be Jimmy Cato for Lepore Racing.
Wow. Hello, Jimmy Cato. It's been a while. I remember bumping into you in Super Rick back in the day.
I
it feels like an age ago at this. Yeah, I think Jimmy and I were relatively close on pace. That was in the old supercars. As well.
The Gen 1.
Yeah. Because
it might have been an early Gen 2 model, actually.
Because that was the series that Aero ran for a little while.
Yeah.
So Cato is certainly someone who's had some familiarity with these sorts of cars. As Eli Sasek actually has just been dumped into the barrier at turn 6 by Callie Height. I'm wondering if you can pull up a replay of that one in production so we can see exactly what happened there. Maybe just
this is why we were planning to run it as a solo session.
Yeah.
Eli back to the pits. I'm not sure. Looks like he is rolling back out. I imagine the argument here is going to be that in the race info, it says that the rule about not towing does not apply because it was meant to be a solo session.
Yeah, a little bit of confusion up in the air then as to exactly what the rules of engagement are going to be in this qualifying session, as we are on board with one of the drivers in the field. I'm sure I'll hear in my ear in a second exactly who it is we are following down into turn 6. There we go. It's Bianca Constantinou who did top the practice session, so already looking quick at Long Beach out here tonight as 57 Ford threads the needle through turn 8 between the barrier on the inside and that tire barrier on the outside. It's one of the big curbs that you can cut here at Long Beach. I think actually you can cut every single one of them as Constantinu makes their way into the final sector, feeds the car over to the right, back over to the left. It's not going to be this first lap that's quickest, as those tires are still going to be relatively cold on the first fine lap, and it's really the second or third lap where you're really going to get those fast lap times out. Lilac Zia has been for a spin out of turn 8 and is backwards in the barrier on the inside of the circuit, so she'll have to take a reset to pit lane and hopefully get back going as Constantinu comes across the line and sets a 1 minute 23.125 to open the session.
It's 1.4 off the lap time that tops the practice charts, but bear in mind, a little bit stricter on laps during qualifying. You're not allowed to make any contact with the wall, which I'm sure for Supercars drivers is a very confusing concept. But that is how qualifying is judged here. Christina Ryan has gone fastest with a 122.8. Top three, the three car times, all in those Ford Mustangs. The colours on your timing screen indicate whether a driver was in a Ford or a Chevrolet. And as you can see, and I'm sure as Lilac is thrilled to see, it is very much a Ford show in VRR. Only 6 Chevrolets in the field in those Chevrolet Camaros.
Well, we said it a few times when we were talking to Lilac after in post-race interviews in the last season of Champ Car, and it's certainly a case of go, Ford, go. The lap times continue to pour in then. It's still Christina Ryan at the top. Paige Azari up to P3 at the moment, but still 0.6 of a second or so off that coveted pole position. Is that Bruce Silver in the wall just there? No, it's Paige Azari. I'm getting all my drivers mixed up already, going for a half spin on the exit of turn 1 and nosing into the barrier. Perhaps a little bit of damage on that Ford Mustang supercar. The driver in the 99 may have to come down pit lane and get that repaired. Here's Jake Fulton in the number 13, another Ford Mustang. It really is the Ford Mustang show through that final sector. You can see how much that car is moving and rolling around on its very, very soft suspension, trying to get the power down out of the hairpin, and it is a struggle. In the newest update of iRacing, they have introduced the ability to change throttle maps on fixed setups, but I believe this championship is open setup, which means they would be able to be changed anyway, but that might help a couple of the drivers out there to try and keep those cars under control. Christina Ryan has been usurped at the top of the standings. Bianca Constantinu moves up to first place, and Ruby Nekamata taking that second place spot even. Still 0.3 of a second at the top of the timing screens for the moment, but we've still got 4 minutes worth of lap times to come, Liv.
Yeah, I believe it is a fit setup series, so drivers are going to be making use of that ability. I imagine it's a great thing. Of course, we have it in the Indy cars. You can choose from a number of throttle maps. I imagine drivers will be taking similar advantage of it in these. But yeah, I mean, Bia currently doing a great job. Ruby, second place. I believe her first start in the championship. Of course, Samantha Tan esports driver and native of Long Beach, California. Home race for Ruby. I know how much she loves driving here, and I would imagine she is going to be really trying to show her best in these cars, but they're very different to the sort of GT3 machine she's used to. She admitted that so much more difficult to get used to with the lack of assists in these cars. But now on board with Ruby Valentin, one of our 6 Chevrolet Camaros in the field, currently yet to set a time, but we know that Rudy is fast from all the times that we've seen him on ABN. And I'm sure if he can get a clean lap in, he will move right up the timing boards. Kelly Height actually moves up as the fastest Chevrolet into 6th place after those early woes with other drivers.
So as much as we were questioning...
Confirmation, by the way, from Eva that you are allowed to restart in this session to account for the fact that it was meant to be a solo session anyway.
Well, fortunately, it hasn't caused too many issues past those first couple of minutes after that small incident between Eli Sasek and Kelly Height. There was a little bit of a pileup down at turn 1 as well, but very much cleared up very quickly as everyone reset to pit lane. And that looked like it was a bumper that was deposited on the side of the circuit. Not quite sure whose bumper that was and whether it was front or rear, but there's a car out there on track that may be running around without a front bumper on it or a rear bumper on it.
I will go and flick through and see if I can spot who it might be. Light still has a bit of damage on the bumper, and it's Tucker Sawyer currently coming through turn 10, who has optimized for cooling.
Yeah, there it is.
In that Ford Mustang. Still has time
big
of full
spin.
fastest, has to take evasive action out the final corner. Now will peel it into pit lane. And I assume get some repairs, but that could be session done. Just a minute 40 left on the clock. See Lila.
The spinning car was Tucker Sawyer's Ascent Racing teammate, Eli Sasek, who has reset to pit lane and probably will for the final time. He's currently lamenting down in 11th place and will perhaps be where he stays. A difficult qualifying session for Eli Sasek so far, but we are following the Taylor Mills Racing driver of Lilac here. I promise absolutely no favoritism in the booth here as she rolls around with that damage on the front end, choosing not to reset down pit lane to get it repaired. To the line she comes, hard on the power of that Ford Mustang supercar. What else is she going to be? Crosses the line when we see any improvement from 5th place. I don't think it's going to be this time around, but she will get across the line still with time on the clock and be able to set another lap. There are 5 cars currently sat on pit lane that will not be continuing in the session. Sasek, Pressy, Brown, Lightwing, and Silver will not continue any further. Jimmy Cato comes to the line, and it doesn't look like, nope, that wasn't a clean lap, so Cato will have to go for one final time. These are the dying moments of the session. Anyone who crosses the line in the next 23 seconds or so can finish their lap. There are currently 4 drivers without a time. 2 of those are currently sat down pit lane at Miller and Cato, both out there on track circulating right now, trying to get some sort of lap time in. And Liv, your pick is looking a little bit shaky at the moment as Rudy Valentin even has made their way to the top of the timing sheets.
And we've been caught out again by open qualifying. That session, I was going to bring up a driver who now has been consigned to 16th place on the grid. 2-time race winner last week, Emily Howe, with all the work to do in this one.
Well, we've seen her start out of position before. Never forget that run from the back of the fields. Oh, goodness me. What track was it in Champ Car Season 6? Doesn't matter. Let's have a peek at how the grid will line up for race 1 of tonight. Rudy Valentin will take that coveted pole position with Bianca Constantinu alongside Ruby Nakamata, and Derek Miller will complete the second row of the grid with Christina Ryan and Tucker Sawyer completing row 3. Lilac Zia will start from P7 alongside Paige Zeri in 8th place. Callie Height and Jacob Fulton will be row-mates on the 5th row of the grid, with William Brown and Bailey Thompson in 11th and 12th respectively. Unlucky 13th goes to Eli Sasek, with series runner Eva Melton starting alongside in P14. Alex Bates will start 15th alongside previous race winner Emily Howe, and Nicholas Pressy starts 17th alongside Valkyrie Lightwing. And to round out the grid, you have Bree Silver and Jimmy Cato, neither of which I believe managed to get a lap in. So standing start here at Long Beach, it's going to be a case of who can control that throttle the best, as slowly, one by one, everyone makes their way onto the grid. A little bit of popping in and out of existence in the background there. It's not a long run down towards turn 1 as those V8s do rev up. We are 1 lights, 3 lights, 4 lights, 5 lights. Green flag and lights out, and away we go. It is an excellent start from Constantinu on the inside, who gets the jump on Rudy Valentin and takes the lead on the run down to turn 1. There is plenty of shuffling position in the background as they are almost 3 wide into the first corner. It's a big dive in the background as well from Derek Miller. Contact Miller spins Valentin into the barrier, and so many cars get caught up in it. I think I see Christina Ryan sat nose to nose with Derek Miller down there, and it is a disastrous start for the Vodafone car.
Yeah, really unfortunate contact there in turn one. It is a little bit of a pinch point. Ultimately, that's let Constantinu run away a fair bit. Really unfortunate for Christina, who just had nowhere to go coming in from, I believe that was 6th place or so. Of course, it was Rudy Valentin who got hit, gets away with it, but might have some damage on the right side of the car. And further back, that is a huge mix coming through, as I believe Callie Height and Derek Miller took up to a pit lane start. That's why they're further back. Christina Ryan all the way down to 18th here, as we look at the battle here between Lilac Zir and Will Brown for 7th. Emily Howe already up 9 positions. We knew how good her starts were last week on the reverse grids, and she's made a good start of progress so far. But Bia learning from that round 2 at Watkins Glen with a fantastic jump to get past Valentin. That's a spin in turn in the final corner as well.
It's Eli Sasek yet again.
Sasek around.
Yeah, Eli Sasek going for a spin out of that hairpin yet again. And the yellow flag, a caution, has been called because of that pile-up in the hairpin. Our drivers will have to lift off the throttle. No overtaking is allowed, as the safety car will make its way onto the circuit. And we are pacing here at Long Beach, Liv.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it was arguable to get one thrown for that first corner incident, but it was just the couple of cars that got stuck there. But in this situation, the entire field is getting bottled up at the final corner after, I believe, Nicholas Pressey got into the rear quarter of Eli. Here's turn number 1. This is Derek Miller going around. You see just a little bit too deep into Rudy Valentin there. Some cars get around the inside of Christina Ryan, just nowhere to go. They have to wait for the whole field to fly by. And then into the final corner. This is through the final sequence here, the Formula Drift course, that of course these lot stiff cars do so well in. And Nicholas Pressey just opportunistic. It's always a gap that's going to close there through the hairpin, ultimately. I think a mistake from Nicholas to go for that. You see, everyone I think still a bit blindsided there.
And that's why the caution was thrown.
Yeah, and that was a necessary yellow flag.
Yeah, from where we were, I think it looked maybe a little bit unnecessary to throw that so early, but that is a track blocker down at the hairpin. So we've only barely had a lap of green flag running here at Long Beach. Maybe some of these drivers are going to opt to come down pit lane and get a fresh set of tires. We know how much tire strategy can come into it. That first race at Daytona was certainly interesting for that, as the Mustang pace car is going to make its way out onto the track for the first time.
Put it this way, I think Eli sat to be on pit lane for a new right front wheel assembly.
Oh yeah.
One fast pair, of course, offered to these drivers. Derek Miller also already down with a toe on pit lane. I'll have to see where it was that was picked up. It had to start off lap 2, too deep again into turn number 1, and this time no Rudy Valentin to break the fall for that Vodafone entry, and losing the engine, and I assume will finish out this race at least 1 lap down, but potentially out of the running. Field has now caught up to the pace car at the start of what is lap number 3. The pit lane will open, this time by, I believe Eli has taken the early stop to get that car fixed. He'll start from the tail end on this one. And I would have to imagine we don't want green next time by, just to try and hurry this along.
Certainly hope so.
15-minute race. We were hoping to try and keep it green the whole way, but such a tricky circuit. We weren't exactly unsurprised to have this sort of damage. Valtteri Lightwind also down on pit lane, taking repairs, it looks like, and is 1 lap down. So I think we might have 18 runners to bring us back to green, with maybe about 7-8 minutes to go, as Eli Sasek does get rolling, and we'll try and catch back up to the field, who are currently entering turn number 9.
Yeah, Eli Sasek well down the order after having to come down pit lane to take repairs. Derek Miller in a very similar position, but we are now under caution pacing behind that Mustang safety car. And this is where things get a little bit interesting, because we'll have effectively halved the race distance as we continue this one from a single file rolling start. Everyone will be a little bit out of their rhythm, a little bit not shaken up, but certainly not in the same sort of spot they were with as readiness at the start of this race. Liv, you and I have both been in these situations before. We've both done IndyCar oval racing. But how do you get reset back up, ready for that green flag to drop in a lap or so? What is going through your head at this point?
You're really just thinking about what you want to do into turn number 1, especially here. Such a long straight down. Apparently it will be a launch signaled by Barney the Flagman here. So Via will have to have the reaction time, but obviously we'll have the track position to
caution short
as the lights do go out on the pace car as we enter turn number 1. It will go green this time by, and it's really just focusing on, first making sure that you are in the right gear for the restart, making sure all your settings are the way you want them, and then trusting your fundamentals, ultimately. This situation is the same as most other launches you get out of the hairpin. You've just got the mirror full of that Chevrolet behind. And you just got to trust that you set the fastest prep time. You were right there in qualifying, just a 9,000th of a second between the two of them. And you got the better reaction and the better restart for first time by. So I think Beers has got to trust those fundamentals. Who this really does help are the drivers. Bailey Thompson up 6, Emily Howe up 9, Jimmy Cato up 9 from the very back of the grid. This gives them another bunch up point to try and get going again. Good advantage for them as we head down the back of turn 8 and get ready for the restart. Why don't you talk us through it, Taylor?
Well, that's certainly the plan as the Mustang safety car makes its way down towards turn 9 for hopefully the final time in this race. Bianca Constantinou will lead the field to green with Rudy Valentin tucked up right behind. It is a reversal of positions for both of these drivers off the start. Constantinou really taking advantage of having that inside line. Certainly an interesting setup on the grid to give the pole position driver the left-hand side of it into a right-hand corner, but Constantinou is a driver we know is quick. Valentin is a driver that we know is quick. That old Mustang will make its way down pit lane and we'll be ready for the green flag as they wait patiently. And the green flag is going to fly. Constantinou is away. Valentin following very closely behind, but Tucker Sawyer putting a lot of pressure on as well. But look at the start that Valentin has got right under the rear wing of that lead car, as I think that's Paige Azeri making up positions on Ruby Nakamata as well. They're going to be almost 3 wide into turn 1. Sawyer having to defend from 2 drivers at the same time. Constantinou will survive the assault of Valentin. Sawyer will almost survive the assault of everyone else behind as there's more contact behind. Big spin in the background, trying to figure out exactly who's gone around there. As I think it's Bailey Thompson dropping down the order.
Does a great job rolling out of the way, letting the field come through, making sure we don't need another safety car intervention. It will, of course, eliminate that advantage, not hurt the tail end. But on that restart, great job from Stansu defending the inside. And Paige Azeri got such a good weekend at Watkins Glen before the tyre call mistake in the final race. Up now to 3rd from a 5th place restart. Great job from her as you try and get a look back at the incident that happened between Bailey Thompson, I believe, Will Brown.
Well, just as we try and find that one, another driver to have a quick look out. Ruby Nakamata made a great move out of turn 6. Here's Bailey Thompson in that WeatherTech Camaro in the middle of the road down into turn 3. Brown just with a little bit of overlap, but certainly not enough to make a move work. Thompson has to turn into the corner at some point and just turns himself off the nose of Brown in front. Here is that onboard from Will Brown. You'll see that gap just open up a little bit on the inside. Brown gets a small amount of overlap, but not until Thompson's already turned into the corner. So that WeatherTech Camaro gets sent right into a spin and has to back it off into the barrier. Here's Ruby Nakamata, who's actually going to make a move on Paige Azeri, who just got it a little bit wrong down into turn 1. They're going to bang fenders in the middle of Fountain Corner as Nakamata has to back out of that move. Your Long Beach native trying to make a way up onto the podium in race 1. There's only 5 minutes left on the clock. Not much time to make those moves work as Jimmy Cato is in a bit of a scrap with Alex Bates in the background as well. As that's a big moment of oversteer. I think that is Cato almost ending up in the barrier there. Just about manages to gather it all up and stay in front of the likes of Pressy and Ryan, who are bottled up behind. Christina Ryan dives to the inside of turn 6, and Pressy has to go wide.
I think we got a number of wounded cars in this field. And guys, I think that move on Bailey, I think Will was focused more on Lilac Zero on the inside as the fight side by side again. This is between Paige Azeri, Ruby, and Nakamata. Fourth place, Ruby has the inside of the hairpin, is going to shuffle out Paige, who gets a little bit of a bump there from Tucker Sawyer. Emily Howe will follow through, and this is fantastic news for Beatrice Dancer and Rudy Valentin, who have 6 seconds to the cars behind now as they continue to scrap. Ruby hunting for, or trying to fend off Azeri here, side by side, 2x2 almost. As Ruby again defends the inside, holds on, and Emily Howe manages to secure 5th, up 11 spots from that qualifying position. She's getting past Tucker Sawyer. Just 4 minutes left in this race.
A big squirm from, oh no, never mind that. There's a big pile up down into turn 1. I think that's going to be Nicholas Pressy, and I'm not quite sure who else was involved down there. Jimmy Cato into turn 1 as Pressy pile drives into the back of that Mustang. No caution will fly as we turn our attention back to this fight for P3. Nakamata still leads Azeri, but I just wanted to talk about how out of shape Azeri's car was down into turn 1. The rear end of that Mustang squirming all over the place as these two are starting to pull away from Sawyer and Howe behind. Howe, of course, winning last time out at the Glen in those wet weather conditions. She is starting to close up a little bit, and Nakamata and Azeri will be trying to scrap with each other without losing as much time as possible to the 3 cars behind. Here's a gorgeous onboard shot from that Ford Mustang supercar as they make their way down East Shoreline Drive yet again. It's not going to be an overtaking opportunity this time by for Azeri as Nakamata looks relatively comfortable up there in P3, but eyes are going to be firmly on that mirror, making sure Azeri doesn't come out of absolutely nowhere to make a move.
Yeah, this is a super close fight. We know how much this is going to mean for Nakamata, because qualified 3rd. Great showing on debut in this series, of course. But Paige Azeri, we also know how strong she's been. I believe former teammates, these two. So I'm sure the situations are fairly clean, but also knowing where the limit is for each other. And I think more than anything, wanting to make sure that they don't give Emily Howe the opportunity to get through and scamper away with that 3rd place finish. Bianca Constantinou just coming through turn 8 right now. It's going to be questionable whether we get the white flag at the end of this lap or whether the drivers will have 2 more at the line to make this work. But right now, they're doing a great job fending off the pressure. And it's a battle now between Lilac Zero and Tucker Sawyer, the closest on track for 6th place. And that reverse grid pole position so crucially.
Yeah, and they are tucked right up against each other. Zia trying to find some way by Tucker Sawyer. It's a very close fight for P3 between all 5 of these cars, as Sawyer and Zia aren't that far off the back of Howe, Azeri, and Nakamata in front at all, but Sawyer getting a little bit out of shape coming out of the hairpin. It's where we've seen some drivers have issues all race long. Of course, it is that 600 horsepower V8, but it's so difficult to try and get some sort of handle on as Zia just drops back a little bit on the run down towards turn 1, perhaps not getting a feel for that Ford Mustang supercar yet, as here's actually a battle for position between Eli Sasek and Nicholas Pressy. It's a bloody kick of oversteer for Sasek and Pressy late in the acceleration phase as well. To the inside pulls Pressy, trying to look for a line through is Eli Sasek, and it's going to be Camaro versus Mustang on the way down to turn 1. Surprising how out of shape both of them got, but Sasek gets it a little bit wrong on the brakes, has to go very wide into the pit exit and will take a slowdown for his troubles.
Yeah, we're going to take the white flag next time by here. We are just keeping the race pace fast enough to take this to 10 laps. But it's very close between these two, but this battle for 3rd place still all to play for. Going to rely, I think, on a mistake from one of these drivers to really open it up. But as Bia takes the white flag here with just a couple of seconds on the clock, there's still time to settle this. Alex Bates gets around Will Brown, who goes very deep into turn 9. That would be for 8th position. Remember, any position you gain, even if it's outside of the points, you're gonna move yourself up the grid for the second race and we saw how much carnage there was on the start, that could be crucial to your run.
So not many corners left to go now as Bia Constantinou makes her way out of turn 5, as we're still keeping an eye on this scrap for P3, as Paige Azeri just can't really do anything to eat into that space that Ruby Nekamata has up there in that third spot. Emily Howe struggling to make her way onto the back of this fight as well. Started 16th, now up to 5th place, so she's going to start very well in race 2, just getting it right up against that barrier on the inside of turn 8. The sun absolutely blinding through that windscreen. 0.7 of a second is the gap between Azeri and Nekamata, but eyes to the front of the field as Constantinou makes her way through the hairpin for the final time, stands on that throttle pedal, has absolutely no issues with Valentin catching up a little bit behind, and celebrates taking the win in race 1 at Long Beach.
Giving us a little bit of a Formula Drift show. They don't normally come this far down the straight, but Bia enjoying every second of that race win. Gets it on the initial start from Rudy Valentin, who comes home second. It will be Ruby Nekamata, the hometown hero, taking home the podium ahead of Paige Azeri, Emily Howe, and Tucker Sawyer, who holds on and will start race number 2 from pole position.
Well, it was certainly a brilliant scrap for position in that second half of the first race. Of course, we will go straight in to the second race of this round of the championship, and it's going to be all to play for out there on track, as it is a top 6 invert. So your pole position for the next race, I think we'll actually go
Don't get disqualified again. But yeah, we had to deal with it. I was going to say,
we've seen that one before. Your pole position for the next race will go to Tucker Sawyer down there in P6. But shall we have a quick peek at the results, Liv, as you take us through race 1?
Absolutely. Bia Constantinou takes the race win by 2.4 seconds over Rudy Valentin. Ruby Nekamata takes on the podium with Paige Azeri and Emily Howe, the rest of your top 5. Tucker Sawyer on the reverse grid pole in P6. Lilac Zir, Alex Bates, Will Brown, and Christina Ryan, after that early trouble, makes it back up to round out the top 10. Then the rest of the field, I'll read out real quick. Eva Melton in P11, Callie Height P12, Bruce Silver, the first driver out of the points, in 13th, but Nicholas Pressey, Eli Sassett, Bailey Thompson behind, Derek Miller, Jimmy Cato, Valkyrie Lightman, and Jacob Fulton, all finishing 1 lap down. Your top 6 for this race will be in order: Tucker Sawyer, Emily Howe, Paige Azeri, Ruby Nekamata, Rudy Valentin, and Bia Constantinou. And then, of course, the rest of the race results from 7th on back will set your grid order for the second of 3 sprint races here at Long Beach.
Well, we've seen it already today, how advantageous that right-hand side of the grid is. Tucker Sawyer is on that pole position for race 2, but it is Emily Howe with the preferred spot on the grid. We know how good she is at those race starts. We saw it in race 1. We saw it last time out at Watkins Glen. As the engines rev yet again, the green flag flies, and away they go. Emily Howe gets a fantastic start on the inside, as they will be side by side through that king, but Tucker Sawyer will drop back very quickly into the clutches of Paige Azeri in the background. Azeri currently in 3rd place. Nekamata having a peek to the inside. Is Azeri going to go for some into turn 1? She chooses to back out of it, as they are 3 wide in the background. It is Thompson, Melton, and I think that was Bates involved in that one as well. They will continue 2 wide into turn 3, as Height with a big dive up the inside of Thompson, trying to make up places early on and settle into this race. And a big kick of oversteer for Eva Melton, as our field shuffles their way through turn 5, and no dramas this time, Liv.
Great job from everyone, especially with that invert as well. Bia got a great start, got past 1 car, but a little bit of a bod down from Ruby Nekamata stopped her from going much further. I saw Emily Howe again, strong start, goes to the race lead, is now, I'd say, in control of this one. But Tucker Sawyer not giving up just yet, knows the hand he's been dealt with that reverse grid pole, and wants to try and keep the pressure on for as long as possible, with our top 5 streets through turn 9 now.
Speaking of keeping the pressure on, Tucker has not given up yet. He is still right behind the number 83 of Emily Howe. So I think that was Nekomata in the background having a bit of a defense from Bia Constantinou behind. We know how quick Constantinou is in these cars. Bailey Thompson going for a move down the inside of Melton into the hairpin. It's really going to choke up their run out of the hairpin as they may come under pressure from height in the background. Satuk will follow both of these cars through, but we are eyes squarely on the front of the field as Tucker Sawyer for Ascent Racing still keeping Howe honest as they continue on through the fountain and through this very tight sector 1.
Bit in the background, I think Alex just about stays out of the wall. Tucker Sawyer really struggling to hold on to Emily Howe. Not unexpected given the pace in that 83 Ford Mustang, but doing a great job keeping that pressure on as even Melton also slow, it looks like, in the early running. Now just starting to fall back under pressure now from Paige Azeri, who I'm sure wants to try and make a run at the race leader and try and get first podium of the weekend. It's been denied by Ruby in the last one. Could we move into turn 9 here? Backs out of it, maybe to try and set it up down into turn 1 instead.
Sawyer's still going to be struggling with temperature issues in those rear tires as he hasn't been able to get them back under control in either of the last 2 sectors. It's a big dive to the inside from Constantinou on Nekomata. She almost makes it work but can't get the power back down on the exit of the corner as it's going to be Rudy Valentin in the background looking to try and make up a spot on her into turn 1. But what a brave move from Constantinou to try and make that one work as they are scrambling for position in the background as Azeri is, I think, actually up into P2. Something's happened to Tucker Sawyer. I think a big
straight on at turn 1, couldn't get it stopped, bails out and into the runoff. It's going to fall all the way back to P11 here. Great job to avoid damage, of course, but it's going to lose out on that advantage from the reverse grid. Got to say from Bia, a great job. It's about as clean as you can make a dive into the final corner. Make sure to get there to the door to not spin Ruby around, and then ultimately, I think, knows that the 40 had the better traction and decided to cycle back in. But keeping Ruby honest for sure and going to try and set it up once again, I'd imagine either into turn 11 or down into turn 1 again.
Well, I'm certainly here to see that. Constantinou, you can see right behind Ruby Nekomata for 3rd place in this second race. Paige Azeri about a second or so behind Emily Howe. Is Constantinou going to go for it again? She doesn't, but she gets a much better setup through the hairpin this time, and it's going to be all about the exit. Somewhat we've seen Nekomata be very good at, and she continues that. But at the back of the field, we've got Valkyrie Lightwing scrapping for spots. Well, struggling for 16th with Bruce Silva. Silva down the inside of turn 9. Does make that move work and holds onto that spot. Here is Bailey Thompson trying to hold off from Will Brown, who has Kelly Height for company, having a big peek to the inside. Brown struggling with some damage as Height does get it done on the brakes into turn 1 and is now staring at the back end of Bailey Thompson. These two could get a little bit spicy out there on track.
Yeah, I think very coming close to it in practice. Of course, those instances everyone's still trying to get a feel for the track. Both drivers seem to have it under control at this point, but might be giving each other a little bit of a squeeze here as we continue on. We're looking out of the windscreen of the Chevrolet. 2 Chevrolets in a row, actually 3 make that with Will Brown behind. And this could be the opportunity, a slow run through turn 6, or turn 7, but Kelly Height not really much space to go. You might have to try and go for it into 9 here instead. It looks like it might be covered for the time being. Paige Azeri has closed into about 7/10 off Emily Howe at the front of the field as Bia Constantinou continues to try and work at Ruby, but the Long Beach State put a great defense, knows every inch of this racetrack and is doing a great job using it.
Very wide through turn 10 for Bailey Thompson. Gets a tap in the rear from Height into turn 11. She's not able to turn it into anything down the straight as both cars get about an even exit. But again, back at the front of the field, we have Nekomata versus Constantinou. Yet again, Nekomata a bit of oversteer on the exit of turn 1 as Constantinou tries to set her up into 3, but there is no space for them to go side by side here as Constantinou cannot draw alongside. They are still doing what they can to try and get onto the back of Azari and Howe, but those two are just way too quick right now, as that Falcon Mustang just needs to try and look for a way past Nekomata, but Nekomata is driving brilliantly at the moment. We have cars inside each other on the cameras as Constantinu moves to the outside of the circuit and pinches Nekomata onto that slightly tighter line through 8. It's going to be a matter of who can get the better run down the straight as Nekomata squeezes Constantinu to the inside. There is a bit of overlap, and it's going to be a battle on the brakes. Both cars diving hard into 9. Constantinu has the preferred inside line, but it's a big kick of oversteer on the exit of the corner. She does manage to keep it alongside for turn 10. Are we going to see a dive into 11 again? Yes, we are. But Nekomata will have that more advantageous run through the corner, but can't take advantage of it. Constantinu opens to third after being side by side with Nekomata for 3 whole corners.
Fantastic racing between them. It's still going on. Bia just getting Ruby a little out of shape in 7. Set up that whole move with the run through turn 8. Ruby backs out, and it's going to give the spot to Rudy Valentin here. But it's Bia up to 3rd, I should say, halfway through the race. Has about 2 seconds to close in on our lead duo, and is going to start trying to get to work. But that was a move that had been set up for laps and laps, and that is peak supercars racing from Bia and Ruby. A little bit of a nudge, not to dump them, but just to try and get them out of rhythm and to set up an opening into turn 9, through 10, and then completing it on the brakes into the hairpin. Fantastic work, and the battle's not done yet. Rui's going to try and get through, and Bia is already closing about half a second on Page's area for second.
I think that was one of the cool things about that as well. It just highlights how important momentum is, because Rudy was just able to get alongside as well. But we still have this fight for P8 going on between Thompson and Height. Same situation on the run down to 9, where Height didn't quite get the exit that she wanted, but closes in massively on the brakes for turn 9 as Thompson looks to be struggling a little bit. Just opens up the run through 10 and tries to get as good a run through the corner as possible. Has to take a tight line through the hairpin yet again. It's another tap to the rear of that WeatherTech Camaro from Hype. But here's Tukasoya, who looks like he got a much better exit out of the hairpin than both of the cars in front, but has to back out massively because of how much they were checked up. The gap is going to increase just a little bit between the two, as all 3 drivers can just take a breath for a moment, despite there only being 5 minutes or so left in this race and not much time to make those moves happen.
I think good strategic defense from Bailey there. That tighter line into 11, sweeping it wide through 10. We've seen it a couple of times, and the strategy is ultimately to stop Height going for a lunge late into the hairpin. Bailey can take the hit on the bumper in the apex of 11 or towards the exit. It's just going to check up Callie. The important thing is to not open the door on entry, which Bailey's been doing a great job doing, but a tap of the wall there on the way into turn number 8. This is going to leave the 27s vulnerable, as Callie really trying to put the pressure on between the two of them. See if Bailey goes for the same defense again into turn 10 here.
But we've seen how good Thompson is at defending. Remember that sprint race at Daytona before the format change. Thompson does look to be struggling a little bit with mid-corner speed, especially compared to Height, but forces Callie Height to the outside, and it's a big kick of oversteer coming out of the hairpin, and that's going to leave Thompson completely vulnerable to Height, who just drives on by and takes P8 with absolutely no effort at all. That is another move that was set up absolutely laps ago as Sawyer slams into the barrier. What a great bit of driving from all 3 drivers there, though.
Yeah, and at the front of the field, Bia has caught up to Paige Derry, and Rudy Valentin has followed. Ruby Nekomata not too far behind either. Very tricky names to pronounce in the top 5 there. But Paige, looking under pressure, maybe has burnt off the tyres a little bit, and now Constantinu going to look to try and get this one done, as there may be a little bit of lap traffic ahead. That's Nicholas Cressy, who the leads are catching up to here, as we come to 3 laps to go at the line, just under 4 minutes. Well, it's over 4 minutes on the clock right now, I should say. And the gap between Bia and our race leader, just 2 seconds, but 1 car in the way. She's going to have to dispatch a Paige Zeri as quickly as possible to have a shot at Emily Howe here.
Oh,
Oh my
there it is,
goodness.
Constantino, big dive to the inside yet again. We've seen it so many times this race from Bia to try and make a move work into the hairpin. This time she does get it done. It is a rough and ready move into 11. Big door slam on Azeri. I told everyone to set up for it. We knew that we were going to expect this sort of racing, especially from these drivers, especially in these cars. There was a flash of the headlights from Paige Azeri. Not happy with that move at all. It's a mistake from both drivers into one, as it looks like Azeri came off worse from that one. Rudy Valentin makes his way up into P3. Ruby Nakamata up into 4th, as Azeri just has to sit and wait for the recovery. It was previously a very strong, comfortable revert, well, 6th place invert pole for Lilac Zia, but it's now Christina Ryan who gets promoted to that pole position for race 3.
Paige Azeri with a nice J-turn to get going again, but unfortunately ends up getting pointed back in the right direction, right ahead of Toto Sawyer, who I think a little frustrated by how that one happened. Big damage on the 99 as the rear bumper, it looks like the front bumper, I should say, comes off. Big damage into the right-hand side, but a square impact not going to give the car a meatball flag. What this does do is it relieves the pressure a little bit from Constantinu, who's 2.5 seconds back right now, with just 2 laps to go at the line. This is going to be a really tough one to try and catch up to Emily Howe. But of course, Bia has the advantage in points from that first race. 1st versus 5th in that one.
So Tokusoya then all over the rear end of Paige Azeri, who's doing everything she can to try and bring that car home. The clock ticks towards 2 minutes to go, as there is Bia Constantinu up there in 2nd place. She did a great job to get the car all the way back up there, but Derek Miller is now all over the rear end of Tokusoya. Sawyer, who we saw in the wall only a few laps ago, but Miller has managed to get the overlap there side by side into one as Miller goes big dive on the brakes, completely blows his braking point and has to go into the runoff on the exit of 1. That's the 2nd time we've seen that today, as he has to get that car spun around and get it recovered. But back towards the front of the field, Nakamata 1/2 second behind Rudy Valentin for P3. I think that fight may be a little bit over, as Sawyer is still trying to get up into 7th place. The field seems to have settled into their final finishing positions, as I don't think we're going to see too many more fireworks before the end of this one, Olivia.
I mean, there's always time. It's always a chance for something at a street circuit like this. It was Derek Miller went deep enough into turn 1 that for a second the transponder thought it was on the exit of turn 6. Unfortunately, a big wall blocking progress there. But we do take the white flag. Emily Howe leads by 2.5 seconds. Should have control of this one, and it'll be, as we saw a couple of times last week, a duel between these two to come from the 3rd row of the grid, set up and primed for our 3rd and final race. The battle for P7 continues. Paige Azeri on the defense, and a battle for 3rd place between Rudy and Ruby still to be decided.
So here is Emily Howe then, but never mind, there was Emily Howe, as we are keeping an eye on this fight between Ruby Nakamata and Rudy Valentin, as Valentin doing everything he needs to do right now to hold Nakamata at arm's length. I don't think these two are going to switch positions without a mistake from Valentin at the front of the field, but Emily Howe from the advantageous position on the inside, well, the inside pole. That pole position really not proving good for either driver so far today, as both of them lost the position down into turn 1. It's been a relatively anonymous race for Howe, as she has just settled in at the front of the field and ticked off those laps through 10, through 11 for one final time. Are we going to see the same celebratory oversteer that we saw from Constantinu? No, it looks like Howe's going to keep it relatively sensible, as there is your winner of race 2. It is Emily Howe.
I mean, well earned. Again, great standing start. She needed him as a show, just like Bia did. A much faster one coming through East Shoreline Drive. And Ruby Constantinu just in the background is going to, I think, congratulate Rudy Valentin, Ruby Nakamata, and then Lilac Zia, your top 5. And Christina Ryan will start the 3rd and final race of the weekend from pole position.
and breathe. That has been 30 minutes of very exciting racing action. Fortunately, we are going to have about 10 or so after everyone comes across the line at the end of race 2 to chat to our race 1 and 2 winners, see what their thoughts are on how the first 2 races went, as Emily Howe in that number 83 machine is going to burn it down for us. I think that was Bailey Thompson flying into the barrier at 1,000,000 miles an hour. That car is absolutely ruined.
Maybe a little bit of frustration and maybe a little bit of, just wanting to see what a race car does at that speed after half an hour of intense stress, blow off some steam before the last one tonight. We'll see if we can grab a quick word with our drivers who took the wins in those Open 2 races. But in the meantime, 10 minutes of cool down, of warm up, and then we can set ourselves up for our 8th race of the season.
Well, before then, let's have a quick look at exactly how the results of race 2 shook themselves out. Give me that graphic there, Amity. Let's see it. Oh no, it's broken. I don't remember the results. Hold on, I've got it. I had it. Is it still there? Yes, I think so. Emily Howe did take the win in race 2 from P2 on the grid, as Bianca Constantinou brought it home in 2nd place. Rudy Valentin held off Ruby Nakamata to take 3rd place, as the driver of the 40 finished down in 4th. Lilac Zier has that advantageous position on the inside of the grid in that 2nd place for race 3, as it was Christina Ryan who brought it home in 6th to take that 6th place invert pole position. Paige Azeri is 1 position outside of that in 7th, as she made a late race mistake, slamming it into the barrier and couldn't recover, as Tucker Sawyer brings it home in 8th place. Will Brown was only good enough for 9th today, as Alex Bates rounds out your top 10. Callie Height managed to get up to 11th place, as Bruce Silver finished in 12th. 13th place goes to Bailey Thompson, who slammed it into the barrier right at the end of that race there, with Jake Fulton finishing in 14th. Valkyrie Lightwing was your 15th place finisher, as Derek Miller was only good enough for 16th today, as Jimmy Cato, Eli Sasic, Nicholas Pressey, and Eva Melton were your did not finishes. So then, let's have a word with your race 1 race winner, and for that we will hand over to Olivia Hayward.
Bia, congratulations. Hi. Taking first blood in this weekend, and a great recovery from 6th place on the grid to finish in 2nd. Talk us through that, and especially those overtakes you set up on Ruby and I believe it was Paige. How do you make that work into the hairpin?
I mean, it was kind of, I knew I wasn't going to pass him anywhere else. And I didn't want to wait for a mistake, because if I waited too long for a mistake, I would have been way further back. So I figured, well, I'm not dumping him or anything. It's just, at that point, you kind of gotta understand that if you're trying to defend that, you're just holding both of us up. So just kind of send it into the last corner and hope it stuck, and it did stick. I'm sorry, it was definitely not one of my proudest moves, but it's some of the things you just got to do in this sort of format. I criticized it a lot. I'm very much not a fan of this format, but you kind of got to adapt to it, and if they want entertainment, we'll give them entertainment.
It sure is entertaining. I think crucially giving them the door more than the bumper in those side-by-side moves to work your way up. Again, advantage over Emily Howe, who I think has turned into your championship rival very quickly indeed. A 1st and 2nd place compared to her 5th and 1st. Can be allowed upon row 3 for the 3rd race of the weekend. How are you going to try and run that one? Do you think you've got the edge on the number 83?
I mean, really, it's all about consistency. I have nothing but respect for Emily Howe, but I really, really do not want to let myself lose this championship to someone who missed a round, or even 2. I know that, if I can get my stuff together, if I'm able to like actually, beat her in the races without making mistakes like I did in Watkins Glen. Because 2 weeks ago was a complete meltdown, and it had me rethink essentially the way I drive race cars, especially in traffic. I kind of have to tone down the aggressiveness. So yeah, but I do think that I have I have the capacity to obviously win this, and I want to more than anything because I've missed out on a bunch of sim racing championships so far, and I do not want this to be one of many. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, she's definitely a tough rival. It was hard catching her in those last laps in the second race. Problem is, so early in the race, I think I tagged the wall in turn 1. I missed my braking slightly, and ever since then, the car just did not drive into 1. Every time I missed the corner, and I hit the wall like 2 more times. So by the time I managed to get through the field and was, slowly catching Emily, it was nowhere enough, and that was not my real pace. Hopefully this race is going to go a bit cleaner, but I mean, first and second for the first 2 races, not much more I can ask for.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got any very quick shout-outs, because we gotta get moving very quickly, but good luck in race 3, of course.
Yeah, thank you. As always, James from Stepping Stone, and my mom, and Jones Racing Setups, and 213 Simware. I'm getting better at this.
Wonderful. We'll see you in a little bit.
To practice.
See you, hopefully.
Congratulations, Veer. Thank you.
And we'll hand off to Taylor, who has our race 2 winner, Emily Howe, in the booth.
Yeah, of course. Emily, hello. It's been a short while since we've had a chat after one of these races, isn't it?
Dang, oh, hello again.
So, what can we even say? You had pretty much the pole position for the start of that second race, and after taking the lead into turn 1, you certainly didn't look back. The generic question is, how do you feel after that win?
I feel like a meteorologist because I'm sitting here looking at the radar, trying to determine what my strategy is going to be for race number 3. Felt pretty good about race 2. Obviously had the lead in turn 1, and then Trucker kind of blew the turn 1 area on like lap 2, so I had kind of a 3-second gap that I just kind of maintained the whole race until, the cars behind inevitably got kind of, interesting for broadcast and fan perspectives and cost themselves more time than me, so it's kind of a boring little race out front.
Yeah, I was going to say, it did look a little bit lonely up there at the front, but better that than having to lament down in the lower positions. You are starting 6th in the next race. Of course, we know you don't struggle with the race starts, but what is your approach going to be for this one?
It's going to really depend on what the weather does. I got several strategies, and I'm not going to know which one I'm going to choose until about 4 minutes from now. But yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting depending on. I don't think it's going to rain like hard enough or early enough for us to really know what to do. I don't think it's going to get incredibly wet. It's just a small little cell kind of coming over the track. What would you do in this situation? Well, I'll ask you.
What, because you're assuming I've dealt with wet weather before as an endurance racer?
Well, I mean, there's T of TMR, there's several people up here who know how to race in the wet.
I don't want to give too much away on what I do, but that green patch is concerning me a little bit because that is some relatively heavy rain. I think it's going to be a case of just feel it out and see where you think that crossover really starts to come in. I think it's where maybe a little bit of testing to find that crossover would have come in handy, but don't have much time for that now. But yeah,
my first laps on track were mid-practice.
No, exactly. But congratulations again on the win, Emily. If you've got anyone you want to shout out, say hello to, now is your chance.
Yeah, thank everyone behind the scenes, VRR, ABN, everyone who puts on these broadcasts, all the folks at Winstel for painting me cars and whatnot, and all the fans who tune in each week to see us try to figure out strategy and play meteorology on TV on iRacing.com, race simulation.
Yeah, it certainly forces us to adapt to a few separate skills. Congratulations yet again, and good luck in race 3.
Thank you.
So that was Emily Howe then, your winner of race 2, starting from P6 in this third race. And as she mentioned, Liv, we do have a little bit of a wet weather system starting to inch its way towards the circuit. We've got a couple of minutes here before we actually get into race 3, where Christina Ryan will be starting on that reverse pole position. So what are your thoughts coming into this one?
I mean, we'll see how much time advance just ticking towards 20 to 12 local time. We're expecting this race session to start at quarter to, and I don't expect the rain to get here quite yet. It might start to fall at the end of the race, but I think at that point, if you've got warm slicks on, you're going to be able to just ride it out, use those throttle maps to your advantage. I believe we are running a wet setup to prepare for what we knew was likely to come. I think the slicks are going to be the play, like they were last week, but I could be wrong. We'll see what the weather looks like as we get onto the grid for race 3, which is just in a minute's time.
Well, realistically, though, we've done this sort of back and forth on when the crossover is going to happen, and I think technically it almost cost you dinner last weekend, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
I'm not going to make a call on this one. We're not going to bet on this one. I don't fancy having to put anything on the table for this race, as we are 30 seconds away from gridding for the third and final race of this round. A little bit of weather on the horizon here at Long Beach. Concrete surface, rubbered in surface. It's going to make it really tricky if/when that wet weather does come, and it's going to be a question of who can adapt the best to the conditions. Just a reminder of how everything is going to be lining up for race 2. It will be, where are we? Christina Ryan will be on pole position. Lilac Zier lining up alongside her in that preferred second spot. Ruby Nakamata in P3. Rudy Valentin alongside in P4. Bianca Constantinou and Emily Howe will line up 5th and 6th. The rest of the grid with Azeri, Sawyer, Brown, Bates, Height, Silver, Thompson, Fulton, Lightwing, Miller, Cato, Sasek, Pressey will remain the same. The rain is already falling here at Long Beach. The track is already a little bit wet. A decision will have to be made by each and every single one of the 19 drivers on the grid as the rain is here, Liv.
I would like to change my answer. Am I allowed to change my answer?
You are allowed to change your answer.
Race 3 starts at noon, in fact. And what a difference 15 minutes makes. Mm-hmm. This is what we were expecting at the end of the show instead. Right now, I think you've got to start on wet. The track is already starting to fall away, and it's only going to get worse. Let's have a look at what the driver's going for. I think everyone that's on the grid right now has made that call. And this is going to make that standing start even more difficult. Again, it's the battle between Bianca Constantinou and Emily Howe that we're looking at to see who can get the best launch, who can make a charge to the front of the field.
So the engines rev up for the final time. Those red lights will illuminate for the last time in this event. It is lights out, green flag waves, and it is a good start from Lilac Zier on that inside, but a late kick of oversteer is going to leave her well under threat from Bianca Constantinou and Ruby Nakamata as everybody files by. Keep your eyes in the background as they are 3 wide all the way down into turn 1. Who is going to be in an advantage? Christina Ryan has come from the second row of the grid to take the lead as Sawyer and Nakamata almost going side by side through turn 3, but it is a disastrous start from Lilac Zier, who gets almost turned by Bianca Constantinou as I hear a bit of a pile up in the background. Bailey Thompson goes for a spin yet again.
Yeah, and a little bounce off the barrier there into Jacob Fulton. Everyone gets going again. Great job from Bia to get out of Lilac Zier and avoid the spin. It looks like Bia's really struggling in these wet conditions. Maybe didn't put on the practice. Thinking it had happened this way. Emily Howe now moves up to 5th. As side by side is Rudy Valentin and Paige Azeri behind. But it is Christina Ryan who's currently leading from Tucker Sawyer, who made it up 6 positions on that initial start, just found the perfect run through, and is making great progress to the front of the field.
Well, they say wet weather is the great equalizer, and it can really change up exactly who is the quickest in these conditions. You can see everyone shuffling, scrambling for grip in the background. We are watching some side-by-side racing between Callie Height and William Brown yet again. It is Brown that had the advantage on the inside of 9. Height looking to the outside.
Christina Ryan spins from the lead.
11. And Christina Ryan has gone for a spin as well. Liv, do you want to talk us through that one?
Out the hairpin.
Oh, the rejoin, no!
Up and is rejoined into the field, trying to get it going again. Already made one move that checked up the field a little bit, and then another one. It gives the lead to Tucker Sawyer, and a really difficult decision under pressure there from Christina Ryan. She's now down to 12th place, and I assume with a fair bit of damage on the front of the car as well. The right front looking a little bit beat up there.
Well, here's the replay for you. This is Christina Ryan from the lead of the race, getting all sorts of wide through turn 10. Into 11 she comes and just throttles it up a little bit too much on exit. And around she goes. And Liv, you made a noise as if something else had happened.
Well, something else had happened. Lilac Zir found her way into the wall after a little bit of contact, I think, from Bia Constantinou in turn number 1.
Let's go for a spin.
This.
So we are going to see a replay from Lilac Zir as to exactly what happened down into turn 1. Constantinou to the inside, hard on the brakes, and Zir just cuts across and can't do anything. Backwards into the barrier, as I think that was Silver getting involved in that one as well. And even in all of that, as we were talking, here's the mistake that I spotted from Emily Howe coming out of turn 5. Big wiggle through 4, but it's over the bumps on the inside, gets it loose just on entry, and around that Ford Mustang supercar goes. She has to back it into the barrier and does rejoin the race, but back at the front of the field, there's Tucker Sawyer, who looks like he just got all sorts of out of shape through turn 10 as he tried to get the car threaded through 11. Big kick of oversteer for Nekomata. These cars that are already difficult to get out of the hairpin, even more difficult to get moving in wet weather conditions.
Yeah, and I criticised the rejoin from Christina Ryan. I've got to do the same. Lilac Zir getting one out of final corner. Finn, I think that was Nick Pressey off the nose of Callie Height. Valtteri Lightwing around as well. We got a car park at the end of the final corner. 4 separate incidents, as that's going to bottle up the field a little bit. Are we going to get a safe car of this? Or
there it is.
Yes, we are.
Well, you say it was a car park, Liv.
Goodness.
It's certainly convenient considering the hairpin comes out of a car park. We are 4 minutes down in this race.
It was parking as well. It was all lined up side by side.
I gotta say, it is a little bit impressive that 5 cars managed to get themselves lined up against the inside wall out of that hairpin. It's Tucker Sawyer at the front of the field, as we are going to get to see a replay of what happened there. This is Nicholas Pressey getting all sorts of out of shape through turn 10, all over the slippy curb on the inside. There's Eva Melton, who's already been for a spin, and Sawyer actually gets turned by Callie Height as both of those cars.
This is Eva Melton at the front of the field. Sorry, in front of this incident, I should say. God,
yeah, she was the first to go into the wall. Yeah, there it is.
Was a solo incident, and just get it rolling to the inside to get out of the way of the line of fire. And then you see, in comes Pressey off the nose of Callie Height. In comes
Will Brown going for a spin in the background as well, by the way. Everything happening.
I mean, there's so much rubber been laid down already on this surface.
That's how to the inside too.
We saw, I think, last year in Formula Drift how difficult it was to get through this section with all the rubber laid down. And it's just a little bit too much to ask. Now it's Jake Fulton, the fourth
I was going to say, this is what happened to Fulton. Emily Howe goes for a big dive to the inside of 11. Fulton very much not prepared for the 83 car being there and gets, turned perfectly.
She tries to back out as much as possible there, you've got to say. And then this, everyone just confused about where to go. They've got...
Yeah.
Bear in mind, the relative in that situation is full of all the other drivers that are parked. That is maybe part of the problem of not knowing if this car's coming.
I think the bit that impressed me as well is that Fulton was spun perfectly between Lightwing and Eva Melton, who were parked up against that barrier. And yeah, it was like bay parking. So then, the Mustang pace car, safety car even, makes its way out onto the circuit for the second time in today's event. Was that contact between Constantinou and Nekomata there?
Paige Zeri, actually the one who got caught up in the checkup to actually push Constantinou into Nekomata. I'm not sure how much damage that's done to the 3 of them, but Bia has made a crucial mistake and announced how many incident points she's on. That's never a good idea to do in a race.
No, it's not. But now that we've had a chance to breathe and have a look at everything that happened in the last 5 minutes or so, let's just take stock of exactly where we're at. Tucker Sawyer leads the field behind the safety car as Ruby Nekomata is there in second. Your winner in race 1, Bianca Constantinou, down in 3rd place, with Paige Zeri right underneath her in P4. Rudy Valentin 5th, Lilac Zir in 6th. If there was a race 4, she would be on that pole position. Christina Ryan has slipped down to 7th place, and Jimmy Cato moved up to 8th. Callie Height in 9th. Derek Miller in 10th. Bailey Thompson only good enough for 11th at the moment after that mistake. Emily Howe has been shuffled down to 12th place. Eva Melton got it back on the road in 13th. Bruce Silver 14th. William Brown down in 15th. Valtteri Lightwing rejoined the race in 16th. Nicholas Pressey in 17th. Alex Bates rejoined in 18th, and Jacob Fulton, I believe, is actually down pit lane with Eli Sasek in 20th. It was pure chaos there. I think a lot of these guys not quite ready for the conditions that we were going to be met with. Kelly Height dives down pit lane. I'm not quite sure why. We'll keep an eye on that one, as she is going to fall right the way down the order. Actually, a couple cars are following her in. I don't think it's dry enough for dries yet. They're
Kelly
definitely
Height-
all on wets.
Kelly Height has a black flag and is maybe trying to serve it right now. Unfortunately, not the way that you can get that done under caution. You've got to wait for a green flag to come out. But maybe just taking the opportunity to get some damage fixed, maybe. Since she knows she'll be falling to the back anyway. Can't really blame her for that one. A couple of the drivers as well, I think, taking their fast repair. Honestly, unless I'm meatballed, I'd probably save it in case something terrible happens on the restart.
Speaking of something terrible happening on the restart, the lights on the safety car are out as Tucker Sawyer will lead the field to green for the first time behind the pace car, doing what he can to try and get some temperature in those tires. I don't know how much of an effect that's really going to have in these conditions. Everyone is going to be struggling for tire temps. That too wide grid certainly making for an interesting run down into turn one. Things should be a little bit easier this time by, as interestingly, there it is. Okay, so it's not raining out of turn 5, but it's raining down here at turn 6. That's one of the little quirks of the Tempest weather system, is to how exactly it does actually rain, Liv.
Yeah, and when it rains, it pours. Quite often. We're in what is actually a more moderate level of downpour for the ice more, or what it will allow for a standard race. But the track is wet. It's only going to get wetter because this system is expected to stick around well past the end of the race for another maybe 15 minutes or so. As we touch Sawyer, leading the field to green again on the signal from Barney the flagman. We are going to have, I believe, 4 laps to go at the end of this one, assuming, of course, that we can stay green from here. I imagine we'd be very hesitant to throw another caution flag. It would likely end the race. But it was how difficult it was in the start. Come through the final corner. Just try and stay in one piece for these next 5 minutes. Pace car will pull off and Tucker Sawyer waits for the signal. And we're going once again. Green flag is out. And Tucker gets a good launch, but you see it squirm on the gear shifts. Ruby getting bogged down a bit. Paige Azeri with a great jump to him back into second.
Actually, Azeri's got all the momentum, having a look to the outside, but touching that paint on the right-hand side of the circuit is going to apply the pressure into turn 1 on Sawyer. But Sawyer on that much preferred inside line will retain the lead, as again we have the whole field shuffling for position. As that rain continues to fall, it'll only get wetter as Howard's trying to make her way back up through the field. But Sawyer, it's a good enough start to maintain that lead, but Azeri makes a mistake on the curb on the inside of turn 5. Goes for a half spin as Nekamata will move up into second place. Alexia going for a spin in the background as well. Constantinu challenging on the outside of 6. Can't make her way through and will have to set up later on in the race. Nekamata takes that P2 solidly. Azeri just starting to slip down a little bit. Constantinu having another peek to the side of that dog box car. But look at the run Azeri's got through the middle of turn 8. But that kick of oversteer is really going to check her up.
Jimmy Cato behind, up 10 positions for P7. And just on the tail end of this fight with Christina Ryan, as they are nearly 3 wide into the corner. Paige there goes for it again. And Ruby Nekamata, former teammates, if I recall correctly. Thea just looking to try and pick up the pieces because Tucker Sawyer is running away right now at the front of the field. They're going to be side by side through the hairpin. Struggle with that in the dry. Paige Azeri's around. Tucker Sawyer's backwards on the outside. Deep through. Paige Azeri gets to the race lead. Everyone, I think, to have just enough time to get around him. Paige Azeri up to the lead, and now Bea Constantinu going to try and attack into turn 1. Can she stick the brakes? We saw a great move around the outside from her at Watkins Glen. How easy is it here? Not so much. Paige Azeri parking that inside line. It's going to defend the race lead for the time being. Jimmy Cato now up 11 spots, but goes deep in turn 1. He's going to fall down the order.
But we've still got side-by-side racing as we do have a couple of cars off down at turn 1. Jimmy Cato and Derek Miller, both of those drivers, as those are the two that were going side-by-side through turn 3. I think it was Nakamata and Rudy Valentin. These two absolutely going at it, but a very costly mistake for Tucker Sawyer, who looked very comfy at the front of the field, just going for a big old spin, but Valentin dives it down the inside of turn 6 on that slightly grippier, unrubbered-in surface. You can see how much Nakamata is struggling on that rubbered-in line, all sorts of out of shape, going for the dive down the inside of 8, where there is a little bit more grip, as there's Paige Azeri, who's gone for a spin on the exit of turn 8, as everyone seems to be struggling in these positions, especially the race leaders.
Yeah, and that does give the lead to Bia Constantino, already with a win in race 1. Emily Howe up to second, as Paige Azeri still stranded on the exit of turn number 8. Is going to have to wait for even more of the field to go by. Race 3 woes in changeable conditions again for the 99. She'll get going again with minimal damage, of course, but a rough end to what's been another great weekend for her.
Olivia, I think you might need to get a pair of glasses. Rudy Valentin is up into P2, followed closely by Ruby Nakamata. Emily Howe is still down there in P5 at the moment, as we do have some more scrapping for position, as Tucker Sawyer has recovered to P9, but big contact mid-corner at the hairpin again, involving Bailey Thompson and Valkyrie Lightwing, as Thompson's going to have to get that thing turned around, as Lightwing just rejoins into the path of, I think that was Paige Azeri, but we do have some side-by-side racing down into turn 1. It is Will Brown versus Lilac Zia, just has to slot in behind for now, but there is still, well, actually, this is going to be the white flag. It will be the final lap to scrap for these positions. It's very deep into 3 for Will Brown, who still manages to keep up just enough momentum to make it through the corner in front of Zia.
And this is, I mean, there's so much to follow, so many mistakes being made again. Drivers just not really knowing what to do in these conditions. We believe this might be the white flag. We actually might get one more as Bia comes round turn 8 with 40-something seconds to go. Again, Jimmy Cato was on such a good run. It's now just battling for P11 with the battle for Bruce Silver and Tucker Sawyer ahead. 25 seconds on the clock. I think we are going to get one more lap here.
I'm keeping an eye on it, yeah. Bianca Constantini then coming through the hairpin, as we still keep our eye on this fight for position between Bruce Silver and Tucker Sawyer, as it will be one more to go after this one. There's Bianca Constantinu at the front of the field, looking set to take her second win of the event. There's Ruby Nakamata, though, about a second and a bit off the back of Rudy Valentin. We've seen how difficult conditions are out there today, as she's going to be hoping to see a mistake from either of the 2 cars in front, whilst doing what she can to hold off Christina Ryan behind. There is still a little bit of a scrap looking like it might emerge in the dying stages of this race between William Brown and Alex Bates in P6. Brown to the outside of 1. Going to try and get it stopped better around the outside, as he's going to have the space left by Bates, doors the wall a little bit, and he's going to get that move done. Olivia's got mic muted.
No, I don't know what to focus on. I'm running out of breath. The field is coming through. Turn 7 and 8 for the final time today. Bia has just a second of lead as Rudy gets loose. Has a moment on the puddles through turn 8.
Yep, everyone.
Just enough breathing room, but nothing is certain here. 3 corners to go for our race leader. Gets onto the curb. You kind of have to use that painted surface. Gets through again, running at speeds that we saw when Formula Drift was here in the wet. But yeah, trying to get it hooked in through the final corner. Be very careful on the power. You've got a second and a half behind you. Rudy Valentin and Ruby Nakamata get going as well, but it is going to be Bia Constantinu who makes it to the flag stand, take her second race win on the weekend, number 5 on the season.
A very impressive bit of driving from Bia Constantinu, but There is maybe one more fork in the tail of this race. It's Paige Azeri trying, or Derek Miller even, trying to hold off Jimmy Cato. Cato goes for a big dive to the inside. All four wheels are locked up. Azeri spins on the exit of the hairpin for the final time. Cato, thinking that move was a little bit rude, is going to redress the position to Derek Miller and lose out on, well, no, sorry, won't quite lose out on a top 10 position. In fact, no, will. Sorry, loses out on a top 10 position as squeezes Nicholas Pressey into the wall. I told you this race would have one more fork in the tail, but what a brilliant set of three races there we had. I'm honestly absolutely mind blown. Constantini then celebrates a well-earned, well-deserved victory. It looked a little bit spicy towards the end of that one. Turn 8 proving tricky for absolutely everywhere, absolutely everyone, as this track just provided absolutely no purchase in those wet conditions. Obviously something that we can always predict, but goodness me, what a race.
Having the ultimate challenge in this final round of weekend number 3. Via Constantinu, again in the Formula Drift looking colours. Running through the course one final time as they come back toward pit lane, hopefully get another word with her. And there's celebrations in the hairpin in front of all the fans. Another fantastic weekend from her, nearly perfect points. And once again, putting one foothold into that championship fight. Great work from 57.
So let's have a gander at the race results of race 3. Down the left-hand side of the screen, you can have a peek at them yourselves as well. Bianca Constantinu will take the win with Rudy Valentin in a close second place. Ruby Nakamata will finish in third place as Christina Ryan will bring it home in fourth from Emily Howe in fifth place. The second of the Chevrolets, Will Brown, is down there in sixth place with Bates up there in seventh. Violet Zier brings her Mustang home in PA and Bruce Silver finishes in ninth. Derek Miller will round out your top 10 as Jimmy Cato almost challenged for that 10th place but redressed the position to finish P11. Nicholas Pressey could only manage P12 out there in the wet conditions. Doug Sawyer with that late race mistake brought it home in unlucky P13. Jake Fulton was 14th in the field with Callie Height behind in 15th place as Valkyrie Lightwing was only good enough for 16th place today. And Eva Melton 17th. Zeri, Thompson and Sasic will all be your DNFs as we are going to bring back into the booth for the second time this evening winner of race 1 and race 3, Bianca Constantini.
Hello.
Well, what can we say about that one? It was certainly a difficult spot to start that third race, but why don't you take us through exactly what got you up into that race winning position in third race?
Yeah, first of all, I am so damn sorry to Lilacs here.
Yeah, you better be. That's my driver, Bia. That's my driver.
I am so. Hey, they were our driver too back when we were stepping stuff. Anyway, I am so sorry about Lilac. There are very few people on this service where if I screw up, I feel just this bad. She's one of the nicest people on this game and one of my nicest teammates that I've ever had. And I am so damn sorry for missing my braking into turn 1 there. That out of the way. That was a little bit chaotic. It was a little bit of a blur. I'm not gonna lie. Most of what I remember was just, I guess, surviving. The caution kind of saved my ass because I don't know if I was going to be able to catch those two leaders with the whole kerfuffle that happened early in the race. But yeah, I tried to race clean the best that I could. I know I'm probably one of the least likable drivers in terms of racecraft here, but I don't know. I'm trying to not wreck people, but if you sometimes you got to do what you got to do. But yeah. I don't know. I mean, it was just a survival race. When Christina got pointed around, I was worried I was going to get caught up in it. I don't remember if there were other guys in the race, but I didn't feel comfortable at all. I know my car had a ton of damage. It did not ride well at the end. I got hit under caution by Paige. Maybe rightfully so for race 2, I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, the car did not drive great those last few laps, and I was just trying to stay on my toes and not wreck it, because I've had so many races where I'm leading and I just zone out or something, especially in conditions as hard as these. I had like 10 minutes of practice, like for a theoretical, highly improbable scenario that we would end up in a rain race, because I saw 40% chance of rain. I was like, okay, well, let's see what the track's like when it's wet. I was not prepared for this. But yeah, it was a ton of fun.
It didn't look like half the grid was ready for those conditions out there.
Yeah.
But you do increase your championship lead after taking 2 wins out there today. Next round, we are going across to Laguna Seca. So how do you feel about bringing these cars to probably one of the best tracks in North America, to be fair?
It's one of my favorite tracks. It's one of my favorite tracks in the world, and probably one of my best tracks on iRacing. So I'm really looking forward to. It's next week, right?
Good question. I think so.
I think it is.
Yeah, it's in a week.
Yeah, I don't want to get it wrong again, because I got it wrong for Long Beach. But yeah, I cannot wait for Laguna Seca. I forgot we were going there next week. It's going to be super fun. I mean, it's going to be hard. It's going to be tough to pass. Probably expect to see some passes in turn 6 if I'm really angry at someone, which is most likely going to happen. But yeah, it's going to be super fun. I can't wait.
Well,
and you're not going to have to ask me to thank anyone, because I will. The same people as always: my mom, James from Stepping Stone, Jones Racing Setups, and 213 Simware.
Yeah, you'd be getting an absolute professional at this. You beat me to introducing that one to you, but congratulations on another win. We look forward to seeing what you can do in Laguna Seca. I literally just said it.
Yeah, thank you. I love these cars. See you next week, hopefully.
See you in a bit. So next up then, we are going to bring in, it's a bit of that answers the question for me. It's going to be Rudy Valentin, as Liv is going to talk to your 2nd and 3rd place race finishes.
Okay, a bit of a tongue twister on this one, I think. Rudy, congratulations, triple podium this weekend. 2nd, 3rd, 2nd in some very tricky races. Talk us through how your weekend went and how you're able to adapt and just stay ultra consistent in these ones.
Well, I did a lot. I didn't do any practice before this weekend, so I had to learn on the fly, but I more so was in the mindset of just don't crash. I knew I probably wasn't quick enough to beat BL on pace straight up, so it was mostly just don't spin or just don't wheel spin enough, and it worked. Everybody around me kept making mistakes and was able to just run a clean race and get a good finish.
I believe your debut in the series here, so obviously a lot of new faces to get used to, at least in these cars. How was the side-by-side battling you had there occasionally?
Not too many there, but Ruby and BL raced me with a lot of respect, so shout out to them. It was pretty fun, just very hard to pass.
It's fantastic. It was a great show for everyone. Of course, Laguna Seca next week. Do we expect to see you back for that one? And how do you think the chances are at a more conventional track for these cars?
Same thing. I'm gunning for triple podium. Just stay consistent, and if I'm quick enough, hopefully pip a win or two. That's the goal.
Sounds like a plan. Well, before I let you go, any shout outs to your sponsors, any thank yous, so just congratulations on a fantastic weekend here at Long Beach.
Thank you. I just want to shout out my main sponsor, Slipstream Science, and Tyler Williams. He's been supporting me in my sim racing endeavors for the past 4 years, and I'm very appreciative of him.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
And from Rudy to Ruby, take my time on that one. Hello. Not far for you to travel for this one, and a couple of great podium finishes here. 3rd, 4th, 3rd, ultra consistent in these races. Talk us through the battles that you had there, because you had a lot going on this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I just had to keep my cool, and I knew that if I lost my stuff, I lost my emotions, I was gonna bin it. I was gonna like put myself in the wall. So I mean, that's just how it is in these races, and I just allowed this race to be like, you know what, whatever. I'm gonna be like evil Ruby and just like not force people around me, like not get pushed around. Because usually I feel like I'm more like. I'm kind of a pushover when it comes to other, because this is not my forte racing. Like, this is the first time I ever raced these cars in any sim. So I mean, it took a lot, and I was like, you know what, if this series is where people can be aggressive, I'm just gonna be aggressive back and let out all my frustrations on others. And it worked when I was battling, and it was just a lot of fun, and I just knew I had to not lose myself, and it worked out.
Well, you put on a great show, of course. You mentioned maybe more used to GT3 machines with Commentator Esports. So what did you enjoy about the challenge and the difference of running a car like this without any assist and really having to do all the work, especially in the rain?
Honestly, it just comes down to some technique and a lot of the stuff that I already knew racing other GT3 cars applied here. Like I did a lot of trail braking, and oh my gosh, they see in the broadcast, I actually squeezed past Tuck. I don't know if you saw that.
Oh my goodness!
I had to force my way through, or else I was gonna lose so many positions, and I was about to get in the lead. But yeah, it took a little to adjust, but then I just realized, you know what? Everybody struggled with the same thing. Like everybody has to balance the throttle with their right foot. So yeah. It was fun actually. It was better than I expected. I was doing better than I expected. I was gonna spin it like 5 times in the rain, but it felt pretty comfortable actually once I got a rhythm.
Of course, stayed in California for next race, maybe a bit longer of a drive for you over to the Luna Seca. Can we expect you there next week? And how do you fancy your chances, if so?
If I were there, maybe it'd be, I don't know. I don't have as much experience at Laguna Seca as I do. I do have an endurance race that day with an amazing endurance series. So I'm going back from one type of car to another. I just hopped back and forth doing whatever. So this is just the next thing on my resume, I guess, that I can add. So.
And,
oh no, sorry, go ahead.
Of course, we do have a good calendar for the rest of the season. OTL in Montreal, Monza, and then finishing off at Mount Panorama. Those could be great picks as well.
Okayama's gonna be fun, actually. I hope I get to there because I really love that track. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. Thank you for letting me. Thank you for letting me race in here. It was great fun.
It's been an absolute pleasure watching you. Shout out to these sponsors, of course. Anyone to shout out. Congratulations on some fantastic races.
Yeah, shout out to Samantha Tan Racing Esports. Shout out to, of course, that's not on the car right now, but SK8 Biotech and Rover Motor Oil. And shout out to Queen Design as well for helping me get to this point in my career. And shout out to my Twitch stream right now.
Oh, hello, Twitch stream.
Hi, Twitch. Other Twitch.
Are you planning to do anything else after this? Or is this broadcast done?
I was going to say, shout out the broadcast. Come on.
So I'm going to sleep. I'm going to shout out the broadcast. Shout out to Katie in my chat. Shout out to all the other VTubers in my chat that have no idea what's going on. They just see race cars because usually they don't. A lot of my friend group doesn't know race cars. So, exploding them.
We love VTubers in this house. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you around.
See ya.
Well, what can we say about that one then? I think Thrills and Spills and Automobiles, despite the fact you hated that line, Liv, it's really come to the fore today. The wet weather really throwing up a little bit of unknown quantities here at Long Beach. It's something that we thought could be a bit of a difficulty, especially with the old, very well rubbered in track surface here on, well, one of the toughest street circuits in the world.
Yeah, I mean, especially in that final set, there's so much challenge to get through that hairpin. One of the greats, really, on the west coast of the United States here. And perfect venue for cars like this. They love tight walls. So next week, though, over to Laguna Seca. A lot of sand to break your fall there, but of course, the notorious corkscrew multiple story drop through that sequence. That is going to be something that is going to be one to watch these cars stake their way through.
Monterey, California will play host to the next round of the championship. Once again, congratulations to all of our race winners and podium finishers out there tonight. It has been an absolute pleasure to bring you the Marathon GT World Tour live from the virtual Long Beach Street Circuit. I've been Taylor Mills. Alongside me has been Olivia Hayward with Amity Pulsatrix behind the buttons. As always, we will see you next week, and we will look forward to you joining us again for another 3 action-packed races. There are a bit.